An ordinary call. A chilling silence. "Oh my God." 3 words whispered into a phone that changed everything. It was a crisp November evening, November 22nd, 2003, when 22-year-old Dru Sjodin stepped out of the Columbia Mall in Grand Forks, North Dakota. The festive hum of the holiday season was in the air, with shoppers bustling about, their laughter and conversations adding to the warmth of the evening. Dru, a bright and determined University of North Dakota student, had just finished her shift at a clothing store. Despite her busy life balancing a fine arts degree and part-time jobs, Dru was known for her cheerful spirit and ability to embrace every moment. Christmas was on her mind that evening. After picking out a purse as a gift, she called her boyfriend, Chris, as she walked to her car. Their conversation was playful, filled with the comforting ease of young love. But then, mid-sentence, Dru's voice changed. "Oh my God," she whispered, her tone sharp with fear. And just like that, the call abruptly ended. Chris, startled, tried calling her back, but there was no answer. Hours later, his phone buzzed again. Seeing Dru's name on the screen brought a momentary sense of relief. Yet, when he answered, there was no voice, only the unsettling sound of wind and faint button clicks. The haunting noises sent a chill through him, turning his initial confusion into dread as Dru remained unreachable. By nightfall, her absence became impossible to ignore. Dru hadn't returned home, and she missed her evening shift at the nightclub where she worked, a commitment she never neglected. Her roommate and Chris knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. Dru wasn't someone who vanished without explanation. She was responsible, dependable, and always stayed in touch with the people she loved. Initially, the police hesitated. At 22, Dru was an adult, and authorities speculated she might have simply gone out with friends. But her loved ones refused to accept this. Chris and Dru's roommate urged campus police to take her disappearance seriously. Soon, a search was underway. Investigators found her car in the mall parking lot, its doors unlocked. Her belongings, including the gift she had purchased, were still inside. But there was no trace of Dru. Nearby, investigators stumbled upon a chilling clue: a knife sheath lying on the ground. It didn't belong to Dru, and it seemed disturbingly out of place in the otherwise ordinary scene. This small but sinister detail became the first tangible piece of evidence in a case that would grip the state and change the lives of those who loved Dru forever. A shadow in the footage. As investigators dug deeper, the knife sheath found near Dru's car became a critical lead. It wasn't just a misplaced object. It hinted at something deliberate and chilling. Whoever had left it behind wasn't careless. They had been prepared, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. To uncover Dru's final movements, detectives turned to surveillance footage from the mall. Hours of video showed Dru walking calmly through the bustling crowds, cheerful and at ease as she stopped at stores to browse for Christmas gifts. But as investigators analyzed the footage, their focus shifted. There was someone else, someone who wasn't shopping or blending in like everyone else. A man dressed in black and walking with a cane caught their attention. He lingered on the edges of the frames, moving purposefully but avoiding interaction. His behavior stood out. He loitered near entrances and sat on benches, scanning the crowd as though he was waiting for something, or someone. In one clip, a woman resembling Dru passed him, and he rose immediately, following her at a measured distance. His movements were calculated, almost predatory. The pattern became undeniable. The man had been in the mall for hours, circling like a hunter tracking his prey. He wasn't there to shop. He was there for something far more sinister. As days passed, Dru's family and friends threw themselves into the search. Hundreds of volunteers joined them, combing the area in a massive effort to bring her home. News of her disappearance spread quickly, and her face became a beacon of hope and heartbreak for the entire region. But despite their relentless efforts, there was no sign of Dru, until a discovery miles away turned the investigation on its head. About 30 miles from the mall, near the small town of Crookston, officers found a single black shoe lying by a riverbank. It was Dru's. For her family, the sight was devastating, shattering the fragile hope they had clung to. The shoe confirmed what they had feared all along. Dru hadn't simply disappeared. She had been taken. The riverbank became the new center of the search. Investigators scoured the area for any additional clues that might lead to Dru or the person responsible. With each passing moment, the sense of urgency and heartbreak deepened. The hunt for answers had only just begun. The predator unmasked. As the investigation unfolded, detectives made a breakthrough when they cross-referenced the man seen in the surveillance footage with local criminal records. One name emerged: Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. At 50 years old, Rodriguez was a registered sex offender with a deeply disturbing past. Decades earlier, he had been convicted of multiple violent assaults on women, including abduction and attempted murder. After serving 23 years in prison, he was released in May 2003, despite repeated warnings from parole officers and therapists who deemed him a high risk to reoffend. Just 7 months after his release, Dru Sjodin disappeared. To make matters worse, Rodriguez lived in Crookston, the very town where Dru's shoe had been found. On November 26th, 4 days after Dru vanished, detectives brought Rodriguez in for questioning. He appeared calm but evasive, admitting he had been at the Columbia Mall that evening. He claimed he was there to watch a movie and even confidently named the film, as if it would absolve him. But when investigators checked, they discovered the movie wasn't playing in any local theater that night. The lie shattered his alibi and narrowed the focus squarely on him. Detectives asked to search Rodriguez's car, and surprisingly, he agreed. What they found inside turned suspicion into certainty. A knife, submerged in cleaning solution as though someone had attempted to erase its past, was recovered. Forensic analysis later confirmed it matched the sheath found near Dru's car. Even more damning, bloodstains in the vehicle were tested and revealed the unthinkable. It was Dru's. As investigators continued their search, they found yet another unsettling clue in Rodriguez's car: a single black shoe, eerily similar to the one discovered near the Crookston riverbank. Piece by piece, the evidence painted a harrowing picture of what had happened. Rodriguez had likely abducted Dru as she walked to her car, using his cane and unassuming demeanor to catch her off guard. At knife point, he had forced her into his vehicle, driving her to a remote location where he subjected her to unimaginable violence. Chillingly, phone records added another layer to the timeline. Dru's final call to Chris, the one marked by eerie wind and button clicks, was traced to Crookston, 30 miles from the mall. By the time the call had been made, she was already in Rodriguez's control. The Crookston riverbank, where Dru's shoe had been found, became the epicenter of an exhaustive search. Law enforcement, volunteers, and Dru's loved ones worked tirelessly, braving the brutal North Dakota winter in the hopes of finding answers. But as days turned into weeks, the harsh conditions yielded no further clues. The uncertainty was agonizing for her family, who clung to the hope of bringing Dru home. Meanwhile, the evidence against Rodriguez was undeniable, and he was charged with kidnapping resulting in death, a federal crime carrying the possibility of the death penalty. Yet, without Dru's body, the case felt incomplete, leaving her loved ones grappling with an unbearable void. The gruesome discovery. April the 17th, 2004, marked a devastating end to the search for Dru Sjodin. Near the Crookston riverbank, not far from where her shoe had been discovered months earlier, searchers found her body. Partially submerged and concealed by the remnants of winter, the vibrant young woman who had touched so many lives was finally brought home. The discovery was both heartbreaking and relieving, offering the answers her family had so desperately sought. Forensic examiners confirmed what everyone had feared. Dru had endured horrific violence. Her body bore stab wounds, bruises from a brutal struggle, and evidence of sexual assault. Marks on her neck suggested strangulation, though the freezing temperatures of the North Dakota winter may have also contributed to her death. Investigators believed she had been left exposed to the elements, her final moments marked by unimaginable pain and despair. The details were almost too much for Dru's family to bear, but they were essential to piecing together her last hours. The evidence painted a grim and horrifying picture. Rodriguez had likely used the knife to overpower Dru, forcing her into his vehicle. Once in Crookston, he carried out his depraved acts before discarding her body in the icy river, confident the harsh winter would conceal his crime. For months, it had. Finding Dru's body brought closure to the search but also solidified the case against Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. DNA evidence from her body matched samples recovered from his car. The knife sheath and other forensic details left no doubt about his involvement. While the discovery answered many lingering questions, it deepened the pain for her loved ones, who now knew the extent of her suffering. As the trial date approached, the case drew national attention. The brutality of the crime and the systemic failures that allowed Rodriguez's release reignited debates about public safety, parole policies, and accountability. For Dru's family, though, the focus remained on ensuring that the man responsible would face justice and never harm another person again. Rodriguez showed no remorse. He refused to confess, acknowledge the evidence against him, or offer any explanation. His silence was infuriating, but the mounting proof spoke louder than any words. The knife, the bloodstains in his car, and the haunting details of Dru's final moments all pointed to a narrative of calculated cruelty. For Dru's family and the community, her story became more than a tragedy. It became a call to action, a rallying cry for change, a testament to resilience, and a reminder of why justice and reform matter. Her legacy, though born from pain, was a beacon of hope and determination for a safer future. The trial of Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. In the summer of 2006, the trial of Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. began, capturing nationwide attention. This wasn't just about holding one man accountable. It was a moment of reckoning for a system that had failed to protect Dru Sjodin and countless others. For Dru's family, the trial was deeply personal. It was their chance to confront the man who had taken so much from them and to fight for justice. Not just for Dru, but for all those affected by unchecked violence. The prosecution presented a case built on undeniable evidence. DNA linked Dru to Rodriguez's car. The knife, found soaking in cleaning solution in his vehicle, perfectly matched the sheath discovered near Dru's car. Her blood was found in his vehicle. Surveillance footage placed him at the mall on the night Dru disappeared, and his fabricated alibi about a movie unraveled under scrutiny. Every detail reinforced his guilt. Prosecutors painted a chilling portrait of Rodriguez as a predator with a long history of violence. Witnesses testified about his past assaults on women, which had escalated in brutality over the years and ultimately landed him in prison. Parole officers and therapists shared their repeated warnings about his high risk of reoffending, warnings that had tragically gone unheeded. The most heart-wrenching moments of the trial came as prosecutors described Dru's final hours. Using forensic evidence, they detailed the horrifying sequence of events: her abduction, the assault, and her eventual murder. They spoke of her courage, pointing to the bruises on her arms and wrists that showed she had fought back fiercely. But against someone as dangerous as Rodriguez, her bravery wasn't enough. In the courtroom, Dru's family sat silently, their grief evident but contained. They had braced themselves for the trial, knowing the painful details they would hear. Yet they endured, determined to honor Dru's memory and see justice served. The jury, too, appeared visibly shaken by the evidence, grappling with the horrific reality of what had happened. Rodriguez's defense attempted to shift the narrative, arguing that his developmental challenges and troubled upbringing influenced his actions. They claimed the evidence, while damning, did not conclusively prove premeditated murder, a critical factor in determining the death penalty. But their arguments couldn't stand against the overwhelming weight of the prosecution's case. On February 8, 2007, the jury delivered their verdict: guilty. Rodriguez was sentenced to death, making him the first person in over a century to receive such a sentence in North Dakota. For Dru's family, the verdict was bittersweet. It ensured Rodriguez could never harm anyone again, but it couldn't erase the horror of Dru's final moments or fill the void her loss had left in their lives. As Rodriguez was led away, he remained silent, offering no apology or expression of remorse. His cold demeanor served as a stark reminder of the pain he had caused. For Dru's family, the trial's conclusion marked the end of one chapter, but the beginning of another. A mission to turn their loss into meaningful change, ensuring Dru's death would inspire reforms and prevent similar tragedies in the future. Twists in justice and Dru's lasting legacy. For a moment, the conviction and death sentence of Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. seemed to bring a measure of closure to Dru Sjodin's family and the community that had supported them through their darkest days. Justice, though imperfect, appeared to have been served. But the slow, unpredictable wheels of the legal system soon forced Dru's loved ones to relive their nightmare. In 2011, Rodriguez's defense team filed an appeal, arguing that procedural errors had undermined the trial. They claimed that mitigating factors, his troubled upbringing and developmental challenges, had not been fully considered and might have influenced the jury's decision. The appeal was denied, and for a time it seemed the case had reached its conclusion. That fragile peace was shattered in 2021, when a federal judge overturned Rodriguez's death sentence. The judge raised concerns about the handling of Rodriguez's defense, including claims that his intellectual disabilities and mental health struggles had not been adequately explored. The ruling also questioned testimony from the medical examiner, suggesting Dru's injuries may have been exaggerated. The decision stunned Dru's family and reignited a legal battle they thought was over. For her parents, the news was devastating. They had viewed the death penalty as the ultimate form of justice for the brutal murder of their daughter. Now, Rodriguez would face a new sentencing trial, forcing the family to return to court and reopen old wounds. The possibility that he might escape full accountability was almost unbearable. In 2023, nearly 2 decades after Dru's death, the resentencing trial concluded. Despite the legal challenges, the evidence against Rodriguez remained undeniable. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While this ensured he could never harm anyone again, some felt the loss of the death penalty diluted the justice that Dru's family had fought so hard to achieve. Amid these legal battles, Dru's family channeled their grief into advocacy. Determined to ensure her story made a difference, they worked tirelessly to bring about change. Their efforts led to the creation of the Dru Sjodin National Sex Offender Public Registry, a vital tool to help communities stay informed about dangerous offenders. The registry became a lasting symbol of Dru's legacy, turning unimaginable tragedy into meaningful action. Dru's case also exposed systemic failures that fueled broader calls for reform. How could a man with a well-documented history of violence and repeated warnings from experts have been released into the community? These questions sparked national debates about parole policies, offender rehabilitation, and the need for better monitoring of high-risk individuals. Her family's advocacy ensured that Dru's death would not be in vain. For Dru's loved ones, the fight for justice extended beyond punishment. It became a mission to prevent future tragedies and to protect others from suffering the same fate. Her story became a rallying cry for accountability and reform, a testament to the resilience of her family in the face of overwhelming loss. Though Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. will spend the rest of his life behind bars, Dru's legacy continues to shine. Her name lives on through the registry that protects others, the advocacy of her family, and the lives forever touched by her story. Dru is remembered not only for the tragedy of her death, but for the light she brought to those who knew her and the change she inspired in the world. Thank you for joining this journey. Dru Sjodin's story reminds us of the importance of justice, vigilance, and compassion. If her story has moved you, consider sharing her legacy and supporting those who fight to protect the vulnerable. Together, we can honor Dru by working toward a safer, more just world. Dru Sjodin's story is a call for justice and reform. Share her legacy to raise awareness and support initiatives like the Dru Sjodin National Sex Offender Public Registry. Together, we can honor her memory and protect the vulnerable. Like, share, and comment to keep her story alive.